So to the guy in the chat, yes, I'm saying that the Old Testament church father, the Old Testament patriarchs believed in the triad. They didn't know the word triad. They believed in Yahweh, his angel messenger, and his spirit. Those are the Old Testament terms that are used for what we call the Trinity. The New Testament writers believed in and cited the Trinity, even though they didn't use the word Trinity. This is why when the church fathers in the councils argued for the Trinity, they cite the New Testament. How would you cite the New Testament if the New Testament didn't teach the Trinity? How would the New Testament writers cite the Old Testament if the Old Testament didn't teach the Trinity? If you read the book of John, as we lectured through the entire gospel, we saw that in every chapter of the Gospel of John, there is a reference to either the deity of Christ and or the triad. In the entire Gospel of John, many of those chapters are Jesus citing the Old Testament to prove his veracity and his fulfillment of those Old Testament passages and his identity being the angel messenger of the covenant in the Old Testament. You understand that Jesus is arguing that against the Pharisees? So yes, you absolutely have to believe that the Old Testament teaches the Trinity. And yes, they believed in the Trinity, even though they didn't use the word Trinity. And it's really stupid for Roman Catholics especially to try to argue against that, like Trent Horn did, because it would mean that the New Testament writers were not teaching or defending the Trinity because they, quote, didn't use the word Trinity. You think how stupid this is? I'm not kidding. Remember, Trent Horn says the Old Testament writers and believers couldn't have believed in the Trinity because they didn't use the word Trinity. Do you understand that that same argument would also mean that the New Testament writers weren't teaching the Trinity because they didn't use the word Trinity? That's just how silly and dumb Trent Horn's arguments are. It's kind of crazy that we have to deal with something this insane, but we do.